Hi, welcome to Rock the World with Kay and Michelle. We explore stories of courage, resilience, and innovation, highlighting both the similarities and the diverse experiences that unite us all. Um, uh, the experience we discuss in this show, though, are for educational purposes. Please do not substitute them for your professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. As I always say, I'm Michelle from Movement Lesson. I always say you've got medical and you've got movement. They need to work together, but your medical team, your professional team comes first. But every once in a while, we all need help.
Today, our conversation is about accessing healthcare with neurodiversity and needs. We are joined by Melissa Johnson. She's a longtime family friend of mine. We have followed each other's family's journeys throughout the years, including, but not limited to, birthday parties, school dances, prom, graduations, Little Britches events and committees, PTA reflection contests, award ceremonies, etc. She gave me my diploma at graduation, and when Chris aged out of school, we all cried at his transitional program party ceremony. Melissa is a wife, mother of 3 adult sons, and currently the president for the nonprofit Little Britches Therapeutic Riding, who has sat on that board for over 25 years. Her 2 oldest, Alex, 30, and Chris, 28, are nonverbal with autism. She continues to advocate for all her sons. Melissa has been on many talent SEPTA boards at a local, state, and national level, in addition to being the chairman for her local board of education for 4 years after sitting on it for many years.
Hi, thank you, Kay.
I do want to say before we begin, I respectfully request that if you witness any pauses during the show, please continue watching, right? Kay can be composing something that was maybe unintelligible or misunderstood, or again, natural discourse. We're just talking and she needs to put in input. And again, that the three of us are working together. So we can choose not to say anything while this is occurring, right? And we're letting that set up. I'm a mother of 2 boys. My youngest is Graham. He's 22 years old. It's the reason who both boys are my reason who I am, but he's graduating from Arizona State University. He's currently under parental guardianship, which we covered in the last podcast. So if you want to know about becoming 18 and needing to take over guardianship, that's a great podcast, and you'll get a lot of information from that where we discuss the reasons why you would do it, not do it. But it's something to check out. Graham also has aged out a lot of his doctors between 18 to 21, either because he's become a legal adult in their eyes. Even though you're under parental guardianship, they just see it, nope, 18s are cut off. And a lot of times with Arizona long-term care, a lot of the people, doctors like we've had, don't cover it into the adult long-term care. They handle the pediatrics long-term care. So that's why we just thought it was a great time to talk about aging out and what goes on. And Melissa here is a great example of that as well. Welcome to our show, Melissa.
Thank you very much. So both my husband and I have been guardians. We started with Alex, obviously, when he turned 18, and then Christopher. But our younger son, he was their contemporary guardian. Since he was age 18, he chose to do that, which we never asked him. He wanted to be that person. Now that he's 24 and married, we added his wife also as a contemporary, because if something happens to us and we both something happens to both of us at the same time, the process will be easier for Zachary and his wife to become full guardians. A lot of the paperwork's already been done. All they have to do is let the courts know. They go to our local probate court and say, okay, this is what happened. And it's just a matter of the judge signing off on it. Mm-hmm. So they went through the whole process of being the guardians. They just are not the official guardians. If they were, they wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things like work with the boys. legally in a different capacity, so we keep them where they are. But they do go to a lot of their doctor visits and things like that. So they actually have a say in everything. They just don't have full guardianship yet.
Right.
And for Connecticut, it might be a little different, but I don't know how different. Like for us, the guardianship covers their finances, their medical and dental decisions, all their insurance coverages, and any other agency. My husband and I handle all of that. The boys don't do any of it. They cannot speak. They technically have an ID diagnosed also. So in the world of the law, they don't have the rights to do any kind of decision making. So we do that all for them.
It's the same here in Arizona, except for even the doctor's office. Most people don't even know what parental guardianship is. So they'll still turn around. And I'm glad that they're talking to my son. I mean, again, he's about to graduate from college. So they're just assuming that's all that's there. But my son doesn't want to self-represent for his medical, but they'll still ask him. And even when I explain to people I'm parental guardian, they still focus to him, which again is some aspects is great and some it isn't. I was really upset last week that his DDD, which is our developmental his network for disabilities, had the meeting with him last week without me.
Oh.
Yeah, see,
Oh.
and she's like, but he answered all my questions. I'm like, I don't care. He's not, he can't self-represent. So
Yeah.
yeah, that wasn't my happy place, but
That's interesting because like there are times where we'll be in an office or we'll have an agency out and they totally ignore the boys because again we're speaking for them, but I'm like, they're in the room, right? So
right.
it's kind of like, I
wasn't even there. I was waiting for the phone call and I'm like texting, where are you? And they're like, oh, meeting's done. I was like, what?
No.
So anyway, Kate, who are you? Tell us about yourself. Sorry.
I am a 26-year-old independent self-advocate adult needing 24/7 physical care.
But she's a
Why
ton
is
more.
this important to us?
Why is this important to us? Do you want to go first?
So about with the whole thing with aging out, and well, first of all, what we're talking about is that what level of representation that should be established when you are aging out. Again, it could be 18 just because like I said, state of Arizona is legal adult, even though my son, that's what parental guardianship means, that we've decided that they're not going into that phase of life of decision making, driving a car, voting, all of that. And so, but at the same time, yes, he picks out his courses, he goes to school. There's stuff I know he can just do it without me. But at the same time, too, I'm there with legal representation that if I have to jump in and make him successful, that's what's important. So again, in the state of Arizona, you graduate from school, at 12th grade or you're 18. But if you are under an IEP, an individual education plan, you can stay in school until you're 21. Now, they can't kick you out on your 21st birthday. So if you basically school started today and the next day you turn 21, they're keeping you until the end of your 21st that year, and then you can't continue. So
yeah, so we're similar to that too, except now they changed it to age 22 instead of 21. But when both my boys graduated, it was 21. And Christopher has a September birthday. So he got like almost a full extra year, which was great. We have the same thing, the dependency until 26 for insurance. But depending on the private insurance you may have, my husband has a private insurance that actually keeps covering the boys over the age of 26 because they're totally disabled. That it's just every year we get a note from their psychiatrist reminding them, oh, this is their diagnosis. It's not ever going to change. So his is always primary over the state insurance. So
Mm-hmm.
state loves us for that, but we have been very fortunate that my husband's insurance helps with that. So the boys are covered very well when it comes to their medical and dental. And same thing, we have the same policy at 18 or 12th grade, you graduate, but in Connecticut, you can't get a diploma. If you get a diploma, then you can't come back. So you
Right.
get a certificate of completion. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've got those, right, Kay?
Yeah.
And then at the end, they do get a diploma. So that's nice.
Yeah, and it is nice. I do tell people lots of times too to keep your primary, because of the pre-existing. You don't know. People don't realize, like, everybody thinks that everything's going to be okay. I think when you start doing parental guardianship, you realize, okay, I do have to have my will in place. I do have to, if something happens to me. Now, my son right now chooses not to be involved to take care of his brother, and I'm not going to force him. He wasn't put on this earth to be his guardianship, and I understand that. I'm dealing also with an ex-husband that's also now legally blind. But under by Arizona law, he's not supposed to be his guardian anyway as well because he's disabled.
Okay.
We're overlooking that because he's still of sound mind to take care of Graham, but at the same time, if I were to leave, what would he be able to be able, and that's where I do love that with parental guardianship, with that aging over, the state actually owns my son in the sense that if something were to happen to us, the state makes sure that my son's protected. And I don't think a lot of people think they're going to be around forever, which I hope I am, but
Yeah, yeah, that's it. As we've gotten older, that's the topic that's been the hardest is thinking about. Sure, but we've been very fortunate. We've never asked our younger son to take on that responsibility, but he started going to the IEP meetings at age 9, and he actually would speak more than most people. He would tell the professionals what he felt, and he was very involved all of his life. He chose to do that, so we're fortunate in that sense. His wife is the same way. She came into a family that this is a big responsibility, and she took it upon herself to say, yes, I want to be guardian, yes, I'm involved. And so we're lucky in that sense. They're planning their entire lives around having dependents for the rest of their lives. So we're lucky about that and very fortunate. And because they need 24-hour care every single day of their lives, every moment of their lives, we're very fortunate to have extended family like that.
yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Kate?
Everyone takes the time to understand the whole picture.
Mm.
Even though I can communicate, it's hard for me to differentiate an egg from an visit and the pain scale.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but also too, it's you have a way of communicating that's so natural with a parent, just like hopefully all of us have,
Yes.
as
Yeah.
a parent to with your kid or your child. So, like, even when you look back at Graham's history, I was the only one that knew he was sick. I was the only one that, and I'm not saying that as a, ooh, but I knew this because my son was nonverbal at the
Yeah.
time. And you develop a level of communication. So when you're in a situation where someone's just not getting you, which we all have, it's not just, but having this group or this team way of working can be such a benefit as well, that I don't, it's organized and it's a protective nest, that I don't think a lot of people see or are used to.
Yeah, I found when they were younger, I was the one who, honed in on all of those nonverbal communications. But there were still times where, there was a behavior or outburst for extended periods of times. We couldn't figure out what it was. We had no idea. We would go to a million doctors and nobody knew what was going on. So that was definitely tough. But you just said something that struck me that I hadn't even thought about. As they've gotten older and my son is an adult and he's got a wife, it's changed from mom takes care of everything to within our family, we have 4 of us now, my husband and the 2 kids. we do everything for Alex and Chris as a team. Every decision is made as a team. So that's changed because earlier it was just mom. And that was really tough. I took everything internally. Dad was working full time and mom was home with them. So that's been a nice change. But just overall, you know, it's the challenges when they were younger were a lot of like being in the public and having behaviors that didn't align with, typical children was tough because, we knew that they were misbehaving. They were just being that themselves and they were, vocalizing the way they needed to vocalize. But it was definitely, those were challenging times. But I think the older they got, it got more challenging. I thought, looking back, I always felt I felt now that I thought it was harder when they were younger, but I think it was harder as I got older because they're nonverbal and it was harder to quote unquote fit into the public eye.
There's that, and people think they're supposed to grow out of it.
Yes.
Or people tell me now, like my son's a miracle. I'm like, I've worked my tush off for this job. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And karate, hand over hand, or this, that, the other, and just sticking with it for years as an example, or just that he's in college now or about to graduate. But it's just, if you would have told me when he was 5 that he was going to, what his life would have been like, I would have laughed. And I just, it just didn't
Talk
happen.
about what qualities you look for in a provider.
Yeah, sorry, we're getting a little bit, we're here to talk about aging out and so forth, but qualities in a provider, first of all, in my son's case, what he has autism, and cortical visual impairment, which are pretty standard diagnoses, but he's polysaccharide AB deficient, which means he cannot fight bacteria. So I've had doctors saying, like, how do you spell it? Did you actually get diagnosed for it? I'm like, it's so rare, it's not even on a Facebook group. But they're looking for like, are you willing to crack a book for my kid? If that's not the case, my son's had 30 surgeries. I love when they say, oh, it couldn't have been that many. Oh, I'm making it.
Oh God.
So, so first of all, on a provider, are they going to be adulting with me? Much less are they going to recognize what my son's been through is very important.
Yeah, I agree with that. I found that we've had a couple of pediatricians at the beginning that treated us and my kids just like typical kids.
Yeah.
We were physically cornered by a doctor when my oldest son was 3 or 4 because he wouldn't cooperate, and then basically said, you were a first time mother, you weren't listening to me in the beginning. And I said, no, I was telling you there was something wrong right from the beginning. And he physically cornered us. I felt threatened. He was threatening my child. So that was a big challenge, finding the right pediatrician. And like you said, the ones that are going to work with you or have the same belief system. I don't always believe in everything that every doctor tells me to do. So in my gut, I needed to find providers that were kind of on the same wavelength as us. So it took me a long time, but that was the important thing for us to do. And them listening. And you're right, just having an open mind to what mom's saying. Because like you said before, we knew what was going on. Those were our children. So for me, it's patience. It was for, the same, thought processes, belief systems. Those were important to us.
What about you, Kay?
Obviously, insurance, but patience and understanding are essential.
Lots of patience, Kay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that patience words is a big word because we are patients. That's the definition of who we are, patience. And sometimes, again, when you have something so rare, when they say, do you have any concerns? Well, what am I supposed to tell you? You know what I mean? Like, and lots of times when I am educating the doctors about my son's medical needs, like one of the things, he can't be vaccinated. I'm not saying I'm an anti-vaxxer. That's not the case. My son cannot be vaccinated. he cannot fight. That's what happened. He got vaccinated and he got the disease instead of the antibodies. Again, 1 in a 10 billion, 40 billion chances of this happening is my son. But so when they're starting to, like I said, fight with me to vaccinate, I'm like, listen, just talk to his immunologist. I'm not trying to not vaccinate my child. I'm trying to keep him alive. There's a difference.
Absolutely.
So
Hmm.
What were challenges in early years?
probably still the biggest conversation that we're still having. My son was nonverbal, right? And he didn't get a fever. So again, when they're talking about and I went to Phoenix Children's Hospital once, he was screaming for 2 days, not crying, screaming. And they just looked at me and said, we don't treat fussy babies. When they learned that he had Haemophilus influenza and staph, the first thing they said to me, do you know how much pain he's been in? And I'm like, look at your files. Like I've been in, like I don't have a fussy baby. I have a baby that's medically he had HIV lesions. I mean, my son was dying from all of this, and they were acting like I couldn't understand why he had autism. I'm like, no, he's sick. There's differences.
Mm. Yeah,
What about you?
I
Sorry.
kind of, I'm sorry, I kind of said what I was thinking earlier is, it's they always had a high threshold for pain, but when they were in pain and they were screaming, sometimes it would take weeks, sometimes months to figure out what was wrong with them. And there was usually a behavioral outburst that went along with that. They weren't crying; it was screaming at times. So, yeah, I was in that boat with you, definitely. We didn't have the medical needs like you do, but the not being able to tell you when they weren't feeling good, especially if there wasn't a fever, there was no indication of something wrong.
Right. What about you, Kay?
We left an understaffed neurologist's office. We avoid generic Keppra as one time I ironically had a seizure in 5th grade around the time of having generic Keppra.
Mm-hmm.
Once mom was trying to juggle pushing my wheelchair and walker in the parking garage, etc. My wheelchair tipped over due to chunks of concrete missing in the walkway, landing in a puddle.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, just getting our kids to and from an appointment when you have a child with autism, I mean, please, Kay, don't take this wrong way.
Yeah.
Someone in a wheelchair sometimes is, you know what I mean? At least you can contain it. But when you have a child that's just going this way, not all the time, or panicking, which is worse, because then they just drop.
Yeah.
And you've got the diaper bag, which medical equipment with that, but like it's just you're juggling and trying to get a child in. And like you say, you see passersby and they're like, oh, there's another one of those spoiled children kind of thing. And you're
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, it was like for me, it was double trying to get them to the doctors. And then when I had Zachary, there was a point in my life where I had an infant in a car seat, and I was holding the two boys with one hand, the car seat with the other, and the bags, trying to get in and out of buildings or doctors' offices. And like people look at you, I'm like, can you open the door for me? That would
Yeah.
be really, just that simple thing alone. Just open the door. And if, like you said, one dropped to the floor because they weren't going anywhere, that was fun.
Yeah. No, it's I can say it because it's my own child. I used to say when Graham tantrum, it was like picking up a wet bag of dog food. You're just grabbing it from all corners and you just can't get it up.
Yeah.
That relates. And I'm just like, and you're grabbing and whatever, and then yeah, it's just
Yeah,
so.
I
But
missed those days where I could put all three of them in the carriage and a stroller because once they got too big, the other ones got too big. I was like, oh, this is horrible.
yeah.
If anything, what helped overcome these challenges?
Mm.
It came a little bit too late, but knowing I was right, and I don't mean again like I knew I was right, but when you're sitting there going to bed every night saying, is my kid literally going to wake up in the morning? And I took Graham to about 26 doctors from from National Jewish down to Tucson, UCSD, I mean, through Phoenix, about 26 doctors. When people say, oh, it's so much work to get a second opinion, I'm like, try 20th. Um, but about six doctors said he was really sick, but they didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
And but for the most part, I think they really thought that I was a mom that wanted a medical reason why my son was autistic. Like I couldn't handle the diagnosis. I'm like, guys, he's autistic. He's sick as a dog. It's two separate things. And it was. It ended up being Haemophilus influenza and staph and autism and the CVI, so I had the both that I was dealing with.
Wow, that's a lot. For me,
You
it
did.
was, the trial and error, learning from their behaviors, what they meant. Many doctors before finding the right one to align with our beliefs was important. I think that for me was the most important thing. Finding the right support doctors, like which ones were going to help, or the right therapies. That was important too.
Anything with
What
you, Kate?
challenges that still exist from early years?
Hmm.
Probably that it's my son is never going to have an immune system because he went 3 years with the infection that they didn't find it. He won't have an immune system. He gets IV'd every week. He's about to graduate from college, and it's still, even though I've gotten to the point where I want to say he's independent, he's
Mm.
not independent because medically he's dependent. Who's going to IV him every week? Who's going to so does he find a job of his dreams, let's say? Do I have to move because the job might be, is he going to get the medicine in Colorado because it's only covered in Arizona because it's
Mhm.
expensive? There's still the challenge. And then again, he's graduating with honors. He's 6'3". He walks, which they said he'd never walk or talk. But again, if he doesn't get his meds, he could die within a month. So, so when they say he looks okay, what does that mean? Like, do you want IVM this weekend? And I'll be, I'm fine. But so, but again, we do it because we're mothers or parents, and life goes on.
It's true. I think for us, it's the high threshold for pain that they both have. The still not, being able to let us know, is it a behavior? Is it they're not feeling well? Since they're both nonverbal, in all these years, like sometimes it's literally looking at their faces. Like sometimes a physicalness that Al might have is he might have black patches under his eye. Typically that means he's got a headache. That's what we've learned by observing, but nobody else would know that about him. So it's the high threshold for pain that blows my mind. A few years back, Al had ended up having MRSA in his brain, and he screamed for like 8 months, and we thought it was all behavior. And it wasn't until the doctor said, let's do an MRI, something's going on, they found the MRSA in his brain, and we had to take him to an ENT because there was a hole in his eardrum. Who knew? We didn't know. We tried everything, behaviorally to get him to, feel better and not scream. And it was a physical thing that we never knew. Talk about mom guilt. It was
Yeah,
horrible.
but you shouldn't have to know.
I
These
know.
are what you think you have doctors for. And again,
Yeah.
what our kids end up having is so rare or those kind of things, but like them saying like, oh, you know how much pain he was for Haemophilus influenza, duh.
Yeah.
But also too, people think autistic kids hurt themselves. I am the first person out there, especially on Facebook, when they go, oh, he's banging his head again. Rule out, guys.
Yeah.
Migraines, headaches. Autistic kids don't hurt themselves. This
No.
is the biggest misconception. If
So,
they're doing this, they literally probably have a headache and they
yeah,
don't know how to say, I have a flipping headache.
exactly.
You know, and
Yeah.
it's very hard. And sorry, and I'm going to say this one thing too. My son, he was around 7-ish and he said he had a stomach ache. And I said, Graham, you need to tell me if anything hurts because nothing should hurt. And he looked at me with these big eyes and said, Mom, I hurt every day.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, So again, what's normal to him you shouldn't even conceive.
Yeah,
That's the same thing with Kay. I mean, what's normal to Kay, most people just couldn't even conceive, I'm
so
sure.
Do
true.
you think if the infection was caught earlier, would he still need to be IV?
No, yeah, no, I don't think he'd still need to be IV'd. But
Wow.
again, you can't go. That's the one thing too I teach my parents. Guys, we're always smarter 5 minutes. If you
Yeah,
let yourself go
but
backwards, you're going to be a squirrel chasing a nut.
that's
Um,
true.
it's hard to say sometimes, and sometimes you don't want to hear it. I can't have a better birth. I can't have a better life experience. I can't, life is good and I'm so grateful, but you can't go backwards.
That's
It'll ruin you.
I have a hard time explaining pain.
mm,
One time before college, I couldn't get in with my primary pediatrician for an earache. I had to see one of the other doctors less familiar with my history. He was rude, said my ears looked fine, and she can't explain herself. He prescribed me an antibiotic, then finally looked at my chart and saw that I had TMJ. He recommended that I go see my dentist, and yes, it ended up being a TMJ flare.
Yeah, it's just and we all have issues with self-representation, but we're trying to represent ourselves as a parent, which your mom goes through 2K, and
mm,
but also self-represent the best that we know for another person.
yeah.
Not easy.
No. Oh. 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 No. How are
So how is Graham now?
she's got a lot to say.
Oh, she always does.
This is gonna be a good one.
Or how I know the best description to say.
Right, because half of the thing in the description is how the doctor is thinking. So if you're not talking their language, you're not necessarily getting help.
That's true.
And that could just be from very simple, it doesn't have to be with special needs. If you're not asking the right question,
That's true.
like a lot of things that come into me, people ask about development with their doctors. Your doctor's not there for development. And that's a really hard thing for them to understand. They're there for RSV, for cuts, for broken legs, but they're not there for development.
Mm,
Right? So when you as a parent have those kind of questions, that's where you're again getting that miscommunication as an example. I'm not saying with all doctors, but with a lot.
mm.
Most people will think ear pain is about the ear.
Yeah, that's true.
But also too, a lot of people think that you're overreacting to pain,
Mm.
and since they don't see anything, then therefore, like in a sense, you're making it up.
Mm.
Like he said, you don't know how what you're talking about.
What new challenges have arisen since? Did you overcome them?
Um, The biggest challenge is again, I'm on my own. I mean, I'm divorced, and so that team that Melissa has is not in my world per se, and that's okay. Like his dad took him off his immune medication without my knowledge because he was trying to get him off long-term care in Arizona.
Mm.
And within 3 weeks, my son needed emergency surgery, but I'm trying to figure out what was wrong. I'm starting to troubleshoot. And finally, he said, because he was told not to tell me, which again, you don't tell an autistic kid to lie. Like that's just not there. It doesn't compute.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, maybe because I've been off my medication. I said, what medication? I'm thinking his allergy meds, not his immune meds.
Mm.
And so now I'm scrambling for that. So he needed two surgeries since that time. And it took me 2 years to ramp him back up to where he's stable again. And I don't have to worry about these dips. And he had asked me saying, can I be the one that's taking care of him now? But also can this be the last surgery? And how do you tell your kid? Like he's had 30 surgeries. Like, I don't know if this is the last one.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie to him. I'm not going to tell him too much sometimes, but I'm not going to lie to him if he puts me on the spot. So those are challenges because he is an adult in many ways, and he
Mhm.
wants to know what's going on. But
I know some people with autism, once you tell them an answer, they will stick to that answer no matter what, too. So, um, for
separate, loop it like it's going to happen tomorrow.
absolutely, yeah. So the challenges have risen since then. We struggled with dental care. Once they had to leave the children's medical dental care at the hospital, we've gone through 5 different dentists for the boys. Christopher's terrified of dentists. God forbid they wear that white jacket. I always ask them, please take it off. But he won't even sit in one of those seats. Alex will, a couple of the doctors, he sat down. But it's been a nightmare even trying to get them to get their teeth cleaned, to be looked at. Not even just x-rays, just to have them look at their teeth. So they still do ABA therapy here at home. So we use that to our advantage. We got a dental kit so they could get used to the actual equipment. My daughter in law found a traveling dentist. She just came on Monday. It was a rousing success. I've never been more happy for them in my life.
Try that.
It was all about getting them used to the different things that were going to go in their mouth and the different tools and looking at them. But she also spent 3 hours with us. It wasn't that you have a half hour with the hygienist and 3 minutes with the dentist and you're out the door with all the noise and laying down and not being at your home. They were able to get up and walk around and tell her no, thank you, and give me they would sign break when they did a break. So it was great. So that for us has been a challenge, but think we're overcoming it. I am so positive after Monday. Christopher does have to have some surgery now because of he has to have his wisdom teeth out. So we're working on that piece, but I also know how to get him to an operation because he doesn't take well to any kind of medication. So we have to give him oral medication before they give him an IV. He has to be out. So I know how long it takes. I know how much to give him. So when the time comes, I know how to talk to the anesthesiologist, and they're going to have to give him extra time. But the dentist was a big thing, and I was so happy I was able to report that to you guys because I had mentioned that to you a few days ago. It was like a big relief for us, major.
It's nice still getting milestones. It just is.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Good job. What about you, Kay?
The only visit that I found physically uncomfortable and have to visit is the gynecologist. This has nothing to do with the provider. I haven't gone back yet. I need to decide how I want to overcome this.
Yeah, it's a lot. And again, part of it is just the environment of the table, the chairs, and even getting up there and even that approach. And it's not fun for any woman.
No.
On top of
And I'm sure you have mom with you the whole time, huh, Kay?
that.
Yeah.
hard.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
is hard.
Yeah.
It's completely hard.
Even though mom is allowed to make phone calls for me, my vocalizations are always required to prove that I give my consent to them to talk to mom as they ask to speak to me.
Mhm.
I find it easier to do as much as possible on the electronic health record to prevent the additional unnecessary hoops of explaining our situation.
Mhm. But that's also you, Kay. You like to take care of things and organize, so you're going to do it for everybody. But no, it is good though. I'm sure that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Do you have to, like, I know here in Connecticut, I don't know if it's in Arizona, but we have an ability to sign a paper um, to share medical information for whoever you want. Do you sign that for so they can talk to mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
But
oh,
Yeah, they still need your approval though.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this was good when for one of Graham's surgery, my ex put him down that he had total care of my son. So the hospital said, we can't talk to you. You don't have, and I said, excuse me, I'm his mother. And they kept saying in the computer, it shows that dad is the legal guardian. And I said, and the dad kept saying, I didn't tell him, I tell them right now that and finally I had to go to lawyers and have them email me my paperwork and send because they weren't going to let me help him with the surgery.
Wow.
That was fun.
Yeah, that's under a stressful situation. All of a sudden, you have to do that. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
I'm,
surprised.
I'm pretty good about, like, every year, every doctor gets a copy of the updated, because you never know. I will say, for the most part, we've been lucky the last few years. Nobody's really said, I can't talk to you. Everybody's used to us now, but there's been times where no, they can't talk to them. Like, yeah, you're not talking to them.
Right.
Like, who are you going to get it from? So.
Every time we need to talk to someone,
You're gonna need to talk to someone a lot of times too, because again, they're just not used to certain situations, and I don't think people are really going to think outside of the box, and that's okay. It's
Yeah.
not, but it can be aggravating.
yeah.
Yeah.
was it hard to find adult care?
No, not really. It's just time consuming and also to find out who takes his insurance because that's a one law of Arizona long-term care that if you have it, you cannot collect payment from that person. Like everything has to go through the state. So if they don't take it, they also put themselves, like, let's say if I want a private pay, I can get refused because I still under the law of Arizona long-term care, technically they're not allowed to bill me then by accepting us as a patient.
Oh,
So,
that's interesting.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
Ooh. So for us overall, we've had the same psychiatrist since they were age 3. We're very lucky. He's still practicing. He just changed his practice from overall psychiatry to he specializes in adults with autism. He doesn't plan to ever retire, thank God. But we've had to change our primary once again. We found a great pediatrician. We aged out. That it was either the insurance company was forcing us, and then it just got to be very uncomfortable. They're 23, 24 years old. We're with a bunch of 3-year-olds. So we had to leave, and it took 3 or 4 just primary cares to find the right one. We still have the same psychologist, which is great since they were in school. But in general, it's like eye doctors I have an issue with, and the dentist, but we're getting there. It's a trial and error, and it's just finding the right people, again, with the same beliefs that we might have, and that actually listen to us.
that's it.
Mm-hmm.
K goes as a team.
Yeah.
There's no guidance.
Mm-mm.
After aging out of my pediatrician's office, I chose to establish care at the hospital where I was transferred after birth and spent my neonatal intensive care unit time. We haven't had any issues with providers so far.
Good.
My gynecologist and hematologist are through the same hospital too. Mom disliked our local dentist after ours retired. They were too rough on her, so I have dental care there too. We plan to do the same for neurology once I age out.
Mm.
My eye doctor is different because they're not affiliated with the hospital or only pediatric, and I have been there since 6th grade.
Okay.
Okay. So with the closing thoughts, if you can go back and tell yourself one thing, what will you tell yourself? I know that for me, I like to say in Arizona, I'm like the queen of services because um, the state's not a menu state. They don't say, here, we have all these services. What would you like? If you hear about them, then you could say, "Hey, there's that. Oh yeah, you can get that. Well, thanks." But at the same time, too, as you're aging out, let's say they can't have access to money. So even if you have like a 529 savings account for college,
Mm.
right? It could hurt your qualifications in a sense, having too much money. So, and disqualify you for services. So I don't, other than Graham's like fun to get around school kind of fun, because he handles his ATM or his local groceries, those kind of things, little bills. Yeah, I handle all the bills, but he does not have money in his name because I don't want, and this is actually going to be my next hurdle now is he's graduating college. What kind of job can he get? And everyone's like, but you'll get insurance with that company. Yeah, but who knows what? And if there's a gap, and will it be a pre-existing condition? And
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely.
So watch the money trail a lot, because you might say it might not bother you. You don't know if you need Social Security for your son tomorrow. Today you might not need it, but watch the money trail is probably the biggest one, I would say.
I didn't even think of that, but that's true. Like we have to watch, like the boys are on Social Security, but they can't have any kind of savings account more than $2,000. People can't leave them money in a will type of thing. You can have like an Abel's account, a special needs trust, but you do have to be very careful because they have Social Security, they have state insurance, they have state funding for other things. Their day service is all state funding. So if somebody all of a sudden gave them money, the state or the federal government's going to come in and take that immediately. And like you, I do all of their finances. I take care of everything for them. But for me, my closing thought, the one thing, if I can go back and tell myself, when I listen to my gut, always listen to my gut. Typically, like you said, I was pretty right about everything that I thought. Um, and if there was a provider that didn't align with our beliefs and my stomach was like, screaming, get out, I wish sometimes I had done it quicker when I was younger. Now I just don't even, I'm like, nope, we're not jiving. This isn't working. But that's one thing I would have said to myself. Definitely, you knew your right from the beginning, you knew the answer and listened to it.
What about you, Kay?
Some decisions that you wouldn't expect to make will be hard.
Mm,
It will be hard because in a sense, your life depends on it. And it might not seem like your life depends on it, but it can. School but I will say too, I went up to one of Graham's teachers. I saw her at the gym. And I'm like, hi, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Mom to Graham and Gordon, which my kids have unusual names. So that's what triggers them. If I said I'm Miss Turner, they would know. And I'm like, I'm just letting you know, all your hard work, Graham's about to graduate, and I tell her like his stuff. I said, so what you're doing matters. So,
That's
and
amazing.
that was a nice thank you.
Mm. Yeah, I'm sure she'll take that like totally to heart.
You hope, but at least it was nice to see her and say it.
Yeah.
But guys, I can't thank you enough as always. We're going to be having Kay's got a whole list of ideas and guest speakers coming together. We want to talk about all of this to do with neurodivergencies, special needs, whatever is your language to it, whether you're a parent, you're a caretaker, you're a provider, you're a professional. We're here to learn from our experiences, but at the same time too, I always like to say, and I mean it sincerely, I didn't have this when I was going through this with my child. Facebook didn't exist, Google didn't exist. And so you'll find us on all these platforms for our podcasts and our videos, and we'll continue to bring our passion and our knowledge and our unique perspectives to each episodes of Rock the World. And they're coming soon, and we're going to keep doing this. If you'd like to be a guest speaker, if you'd like to bring your input or have a questions, please let us know. And
Yeah.
thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank
joining
you. Thank you. It was
And have a
great.